using the link in the description. Deposit $10 or more and get $180 worth of Awesemo Plus Platinum. We'll never run anything like this again. At least I hope we don't. So take advantage of it now, and we'll catch you over there. Antonio Gibson's first couple weeks had people who drafted him in the second round a little worried, but he bailed them out with a beautiful 73-yard touchdown reception in Week 3's ass-kicking at the hands of the Bills. That's not really going to cut it over the course of the season, though, given that Gibson was only targeted twice on the day. Still, he's a dynamic receiver who should absolutely be used in the passing game more, but will also get a lot more work on the ground so long as Washington's defense isn't a sieve every week. This week presents a perfect opportunity for Gibson to reestablish himself as the high-volume back we were hoping for this season, and the one we saw in Week 1 who had 20 carries and 25 total looks. And it's worth noting that Gibson leads J.D. McKissic in targets with 9 to 8 and has only run 5 fewer routes. The Week 4 matchup with Atlanta is fantastic, not because the Falcons' run defense has been disastrous, they've been middle of the road, but because Matt Ryan seems to be dust at this point, and they simply can't score points. Similar to what we talked about with Kittle, Ron Rivera will need to lean on one of his best skill players if they want to be successful, especially when Taylor Heinicke is under center. This is as good a time as ever to make that happen, with Washington sitting as a slight favorite and a nice 25-point implied total at home. You got to ride with Gibson this week, even if his lightened workload over the last 2 weeks has been concerning. And think of it this way, the dude still has 82% of all running back carries in his backfield, so we know it belongs only to him. I told you guys at the beginning, I tell you every week, I'll tell you one more time. I'm not here to give you players that are playing great, that are elite, and that everyone knows to start. It'll waste your time and mine, okay? It's the players who you drafted as flex players or later, or the guys you drafted early who are underperforming and starting to spike your anxiety that I want to talk about. It's not only more interesting, but a lot more helpful, I'd hope. That's why we need to give Jonathan Taylor another shot this week. It's true that Taylor's explosion in the final quarter of his rookie season came against bad teams and worse defenses. But Taylor has been involved in mostly all negative game scripts to start the year, and the Colts ranked 21st in run play percentage, where last season they were 9th. He's still handling 67% of running back rushing attempts, though, and leads the entire league in goal line carries with 6, which is both encouraging and disappointing because despite the opportunity, Taylor has yet to punch one into the end zone. You still have to expect some positive regression here, though, even if Quentin Nelson is sidelined. Taylor converted 8 of his 16 goal line carries into touchdowns last year, and Football Outsiders still ranks Indianapolis 7th in adjusted line yards and 4th in stuff percentage this season, which is good. I don't love Nyheim Hines' increased usage at all, and Taylor's 11 touches last week were definitely concerning. But in what should be a neutral game script against a far from explosive Miami offense, this could be our last chance to get a taste of last year's production out of Taylor, and we have to roll the dice. Before we get to our...
Everybody's out. I love it. Yeah. Welcome in. Good morning. It's the Awesemo Fantasy Football Show. Myself, Nick Leprey's in the house. Chris is producing. The three of us here with you for the next hour and change as we lead you up to lock. And a lot of folks coming in off of Nick's stream. So let me preemptively thank you, and we appreciate you all continuing to ride with us now on the Awesemo Fantasy Football channel. Good opportunity for a bunch of you who have already filed in pre-show to hit that thumbs up button, and please subscribe. We have awesome stuff going on for you, including what's happening here with Yahoo. We'll tell you all about that coming up throughout the show. But, man, Nick, we have a bunch of early inactives out. We have guys that are cleared. Dalvin Cook is in, so we can talk, as we always do, kind of from the jump, the slate, the thoughts that you have coming into this week. And then, of course, we'll focus on some injuries. We know we have a ton of people, thanks to you, of course, already lined up, ready to hit some starter sits that we're ready to fire off for you as well. But let's just start how you're heading into this week now, week 4 in the NFL.
Yeah, it's week number 4. Normally week 4 feels like we're a decent amount into the season, but now we got that extra game this year. So, we got some even more time to talk fantasy this season. I'm very excited for this week. There are a lot of injuries that have been dealt with this week, but it doesn't seem like there's too many super big concerns right now. Whereas normally we're sitting here at 11:45, 11:50, and there's guys flying in and out of the lineups. But right now it seems pretty steady. And besides that big injury to Josh Jacobs, it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot to talk about, but we will obviously touch on everything.
Yeah, and just to kind of bounce around with injuries itself, as you mentioned, we're going to hit on what's going on with some of the obvious ones like Dalvin Cook being active. There's some deeper things like the entire Philadelphia Eagles offensive line appears, outside of Jason Kelsey, appears to be inactive. But you mentioned, as far as just maybe a starting spot, Jacobs, if there's any interest there, and look, that's Monday night, so that's pretty much in the back end. But I think instead of it just being a straight, hey, what do I do with Jacobs? Is it more a matter of looking at a guy today that you may have to preemptively start as opposed to waiting for Monday night and possibly getting burned?
Yeah, right now I feel like someone asked in my chat earlier about this. If you have like any other semblance of a starting running back, I feel like you just have to play him over Jacobs at this point, because even if Jacobs plays, let's say he's not 100%, then Peyton Barber's role will be extended in the offense. It's kind of a similar situation that we're probably going to have a question about today about Darrell Henderson, where I think that when Darrell Henderson's 100% healthy, he's the main guy over Sony Michel, and Sony Michel won't be seeing too much work. But when Darrell Henderson is banged up going into this game, then we'll see more of Michel than we normally would, and I think that's kind of the situation with Jacobs and Barber and Kenyon Drake there in the Raiders. So if Jacobs even gets the go, it doesn't seem like he's 100% healthy, which means that other guys will be seeing more work, which in turn makes it so that it's going to be hard to start Jacobs this week.
All right. And on that note, it's just looking at other backs. I mean, clearly, if you have Dalvin Cook, then you're thrilled with the news today. And
yeah,
we keep talking about this. I mean, you mentioned as far as week 4, we don't really have a ton of last second injuries that are going to teeter on an impact. The one guy that we really have had that's kind of floating around is a must start anyway, right? Like, it doesn't matter if the guy's got one leg out there, you're playing Dalvin Cook.
Yeah, definitely. He could be out there in a wheelchair and I'm playing the guy. He's that good. So
doesn't stop. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
But now, I mean, around the board here, they're really, I know we're dealing with the 49ers and as far as George Kittle, how that may impact someone like Deebo Samuel. There was some belief, right, that if Kittle was out, that would significantly impact, and from a positive standpoint, of course, Deebo's productivity. But now with Kittle playing, he's still banged up. So again, Kittle must play, but what about the ripple effect around him?
It's interesting because it seemed like once Ayuk was in the lineup, then that really opened up Kittle to play a lot better, because the first 2 weeks, George Kittle wasn't really doing all that much. And then we saw last week, once Ayuk was kind of freed from the doghouse, that Kittle looked a lot better. If Kittle is banged up and isn't 100%, then obviously that is going to help out. That's going to help out Deebo. That's going to help out Ayuk. But how much does it help them out? I'm not too sure, because this is a team, again, that's not just ultra pass heavy every single down, just hammering the ball down the field. That's just not their kind of style, but I do think it does help out Deebo and Ayuk if that is the case. But I still think right now, if you're thinking between Ayuk and Deebo, if you have them both on your team, I would still lean Deebo very heavily over Ayuk.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like relying on Brandon Ayuk, you've probably made some mistakes in your draft, right? If you're at this point.
Yeah, right now, probably, but it depends on when you drafted, right? Because if you drafted early August before he got hurt, then Ayuk was like a perfectly fine 5th round pick. But like when you drafted him at the end of August, he like completely fell down the draft board. So it really depends on when you drafted.
All right, hit that thumbs up button, please. Make sure you're subscribed here to the Awesemo Fantasy Football channel. Look, we're going to give new Yahoo users 2 free months of Awesemo Plus Platinum upon signing up with your first deposit and paid contest entry. You know, we've got a couple of great things with Yahoo that we're going to do today. We'll tell you about, but people already chomping at the bit. So as we thread injury talk with the start sits, let's start at the top there. Rakesh on the chat, Stafford or Hurts, 6-point passing standard. And we now know that Lane Johnson is out. So that's 4 of 5 starting linemen, Nick, out for the Philadelphia Eagles against the Chiefs defense, who's awful, by the way, but still 4 of 5 starting linemen out for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, that is a tough scene.
I
We're
may
going
have
with
to take
Stafford.
this off real quick. Hold on. This is embarrassing.
I'd wear my Dolphins hoodie, but it actually is invisible with the green screen behind me, so I can't even wear
I
it.
thought this would be too, but I guess I don't know what it is here. But
It's a different shade of green, so you're good. But yeah, I mean, Stafford is just fucking on fire right now. Like, there's no way you can fade away from Stafford. I think Hurts could have a good game. And even though they were getting doused by Dallas, Hurts still played well last week for fantasy because of the fact that he can use his legs. I don't understand what Sirani's doing there. Why are they not running the football? Why does he have a highlighter in his hat? Doesn't make any sense. He thinks he's like Matt Patricia or something with a pencil.
Yep.
It's very stupid. But at the end of the day, I'm going to go ahead and tell you to start Stafford. I think Stafford tears it up. When will we see Robert Woods is probably the biggest question that I have about that situation. But even Robert Woods could do nothing and Stafford would still throw for 1,000,000 points in this game. So go ahead and play Stafford. I think that's going to be a really high scoring game. So yeah, that would be my lean. I'm very heavy on Stafford and Tom Brady this week are probably the two guys that I'm looking the most to start.
Yeah, I agree, man. If you are, look, you're comparing Hurts to Stafford. I think right now you just have to err on the side of caution, which is, as Nick said, the guy tearing it up. But the benefit or maybe upside that people are looking at with Hurts is clearly his ability to run. And I don't know the game script, right? I mean, this guy you mentioned, of all people to emulate, you're walking around looking like Matt Patricia. I mean, my goodness, there's so many problems with that in its own right. But I don't think people know week to week what this Eagles team is. The line is down. That's not necessarily, oh, yeah, well, Hurts is going to escape. It's probably Hurts going to be on his back more often than he's going to escape. So offensive line, defensive line, like that's what I'll always look at from a betting trend, right? To say, okay, first and foremost, how bad is the offensive line banged up? They're down 4 guys. You really have to be like QB 2/3 versus Hurts, I think, in order for Hurts to start over a lot of names today. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense. I have Hurts on a couple of my teams that I'm going to be stuck playing this week. I think he actually will be fine, but to me, he's not even like in the conversation of a guy like Stafford. Any of those guys that I feel like could be top 5, I just don't think Hurts really enters that conversation this week, especially with the offensive line. Like, it's hard to imagine that he's going to be able to run free when there's that many down offensive linemen. Like, how good could the backups possibly be? The answer is probably not very good. So I expect Hurts to struggle, but I still think he's an okay option. But the bigger question would be like him versus a guy like Tannehill this week, because Tannehill's dealing with so many, his weapons are all hurt. AJ Brown,
both guys,
as well as Julio Jones. And I would lean with Hurts in that question because I think the Jets might just get ran on by Derrick Henry. Like, they just run a million times, but their run defense is also solid enough to maybe they can somehow contain that and they have to pass. So Tannehill's a guy that completely fell off the rankings this week. He was probably going to be a guy that would be like a top 5 quarterback had just Julio Jones have suited up, but with the weapons there, I'm down on Tannehill. I know that had nothing to do with the question, but it is what it is.
No, I think that's a great point. Look, I think people may be looking at Hurts and thinking, look, if you have Hurts versus Tannehill, which I'm sure there are plenty of scenarios where people have drafted both of those quarterbacks, part of me, then I think you're in good shape. But I think there's also, maybe people are trying to streamline, right? Maybe people are looking at Jalen Hurts and thinking, well, there are a bunch of guys that are down on the offensive line. Is it worth it grabbing Derek Carr or Sam Darnold? Either of those guys appeal to you more than maybe Hurts?
Probably not, but I do like both Darnold and Carr as well this week. I think both of them are in good matchups. I mean, Derek Carr's been playing amazing. Sam Darnold, it looks like Adam Gase really does truly ruin players. We saw it with Tannehill. We see it with Darnold. Like, he literally leaves and now he's 3-0. Like, I don't even think that guy won 3 total games in his whole Jets career. And he's won 3 games to start the season. Like, that just goes to show you how bad Adam Gase is. So I like Darnold, I like Carr, but I still would lean with Hurts because there's always the chance that he just rushes for like 60 yards in the game. That's like 6 free points. And as long as he doesn't throw like a bunch of interceptions or something, he'll have a solid outing.
Matthew on the chat, Hunt or Fournette? Let's look at that. He's got a couple here. Hunt or Fournette? Let's start there.
Hunt or Fournette? I'm definitely going with Hunt.
Yeah.
I don't think I can trust Fournette at this point, if I'm being honest. I think Fournette is a fine player, and it wouldn't surprise me, right? Because everyone's talking about how Tom is going to just hang it down on the Patriots, right? He's going to throw 5-6 touchdowns or something crazy like
Yeah.
that. But maybe that's not what happens. And maybe they just run the ball. They score like 3 touchdowns rushing the ball. And then Lenny has a good game. But every week, you never know who it's going to be. Now, Giovanni Bernard is not playing this week, so it won't be Gio, but wouldn't be surprised if Rojo was the benefactor of that. So just go with Hunt. He's a very safe guy every week. Last week, I brought up how he's like the condom you wrap around your roster. It's very true.
Yeah.
He's very safe weekly.
We have to be able to further that and make sure that it has a weekly occurrence. You reminding us of that analogy.
Yeah, it's a great analogy.
Unless there's somebody else who fits it better, right? I don't know if anybody fits the condom analogy better than Hunt.
No, no one does. That guy's just safe every week. I mean, last week he had a huge game, but normally he's like good 12, 14 points every single week, and you can just rely on him.
All right, we have a super chat here. Brandon, we appreciate this immensely. And this is a super chat worthy question here because there's a lot going on, right? You have Allen, Eckler, Gordon, Ridley, JJ, Kupp, Gronk, and we know Gronk is out probably for a couple of weeks with those broken ribs.
Yeah.
Benches Higbee, Michelle, Gainwell. Got offered Lamb and Swift. Basically, that's the trade. Got offered Lamb and Swift for Kupp and Gordon and Gronk. Your thoughts, sir?
Oh,
If you get rid of Gronk, maybe, but you're getting rid of Kupp too.
Yeah, the issue with this, this is tough because Kupp right now is basically just locked and loaded in every single week to be a top 5 guy. Now, eventually, I think that will change, right? Robert Woods will be more involved as the season goes on. But right now, Kupp's just locked and loaded in there. So it's going to be hard to move on from him. But at the same time, Swift is a guy that going into the offseason, I was really down on because I thought that, hey, how are you going to run the ball when you're down by 7,000 points every single game? Which is true, right? That's very hard to do. But it doesn't matter because Jared Goff just dumps the ball off to him so often that he's going to be able to get a lot of points that way in like a PPR, half PPR format. And then the thing with also the other player going in this trade is CeeDee Lamb, right? He had a down game last week. He was down on the 1-yard line. He should have scored that touchdown. I'm not too sure how he didn't get in right at the beginning of the game, but he doesn't score.
Yep.
So my lean would be to, unless you really feel like your team is losing or something, or you need to shake things up, I'd be fine keeping Kupp, Gordon, and Gronk, because I think when Gronk returns, he's still like a top 5 tight end. And I think Melvin Gordon, if Javonte Williams was to go down, now again, I'm not going to predict some type of injury, right? Because the odds that happens is very low. Williams is not someone who has dealt with that in his career thus far. But my thoughts are that if he was to go down, Gordon could easily be a top 10 running back, top 5 running back, maybe. So I'm not necessarily looking to do the trade, but he didn't say that he has another tight end. Oh no, he has Higbee. Oh man.
Yeah, Higbee.
You know what?
Yeah,
I would think about that. I would do the trade.
Do the trade. Yeah. Look, Higbee is, I have Higbee in our league, and he's just set it and forget it every single week. You mentioned Stafford, and here's the thing, like, I agree with you. Kupp may drop a little bit, but it seems like, and we know from TJ right in Detroit, Stafford loves him some tight end stuff, man. So why not? You're in good shape, I think. It's not the equal, but at least you're not dropping off significantly at the tight end spot when Gronk comes back, I guess is my point.
Yeah, I think he has a really good team, so I would be fine doing that trade. I think Swift is going to be pretty consistent. The thing, though, that sucks is when you're trading away a guy like Kupp, that where we all believe that, hey, there's going to be regression. That what happens if there is no regression, right? And he's just the number 1 receiver on the season. But it is what it is. I'd do that trade. I think CeeDee Lamb's a guy that could also be like the number 1 receiver when all things are said and done a bunch of weeks from now at the end of the season.
All right, so let's look at Jay. We appreciate your super chat here as well. Ridley, Mike W. over Deontay Robinson, Hendo, half point PPR. Or half PPR, pardon me.
All right, I got you here. That was from, Ridley, Mike Williams.
Jay,
yeah, Ridley, Mike Williams over Deontay Robinson, Henderson. Yeah, I would have to agree with that. I mean, Mike Williams, he's also a guy that it's like, oh, should I trade Mike Williams? But then it's like, how can you trade away a guy on an offense with Justin Herbert, who seems like he's going to tear it up? I mean, I did give the advice earlier. Someone asked me about Mike Williams. If they had Mike Williams and Keenan Allen, I said just to trade away Williams because right now his trade value is like astronomical, right? Because he's playing so well. But I think that Mike Williams is a very reliable option every single game. And I think he's going to be reliable this week and for the future. So I would go with Ridley and Mike Williams. I do like Deontay Johnson a lot this week because Claypool is out. Juju is banged up going into the game. But man, Big Ben just looks atrocious. And that does worry me. But at the end of the day, the thing with Deontay Johnson is the volume. He's just the king of volume. He gets so many passes thrown his way every single game. So I think Johnson's fine, but over Williams and Ridley, that's a no. So Ridley and Williams is the correct answer there over Deontay, Allen Robinson, and Darrell Henderson.
Yeah, it's a great point, man, on Mike Williams. Just riding him each and every week like Cup. These two guys are just cash cows. And, especially today, or just looking at this slate, I should say, for Monday night, really, that there's going to be offense. That both quarterbacks are going to throw a lot. Yeah. There's no indication that Mike Williams is – and look, it may just be the law of averages. It may catch up. But that wave looks like it's still upwards right now for Williams. I mean, he's insane. So I saw this one, and this kind of opens up the conversation about what to do with someone like Deebo Samuel, knowing, of course, that with Deebo and George Kittle, you're sharing targets, but we also thought that there could be a good shot, at least later in the week, that Kittle would be out. So he's in. And on the chat here, KJ on the chat, DeAndre Swift or Deebo Samuel in the flex?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would go with Swift, to be honest with you. I think Deebo Samuel is also one of those players where you just ride the train out, you keep playing the heat. But I think DeAndre Swift, he's also on fire. He's been playing quite well this season. He's only had one down game. And you just have to expect that even if they're down in the game, right, they're just going to dump the ball off to Swift. I mean, looking at the receiver core there, our boy, Mr. Q Quintez, obviously, he played like shit last week. Yep. But like, who else do they have? It's literally Swift is probably the best receiver or TJ Hawkinson, and neither of them play wide receiver. And Jamal Williams might be third best, and he's the other running back. So I would just go with DeAndre Swift. I think he's going to get a lot of volume, and that's just kind of how I feel about it. It is definitely not a absurd question, though, because they are kind of close in value, but I would go Swift.
Yeah, I guess the question, and it's not in relation to Swift, it's more in relation to Deebo right now, but he's teetering, like, you'd have to have a significantly better option, I think, to move away from Samuel just because Kittle is playing, right? I mean, yeah, Kittle was basically thought to be out, dead this week, down, and now he's playing through it, so I don't think we should expect 10 catches, $180, 2 touchdowns from Kittle. There's probably going to be taking advantage of the matchup and just his presence out there. But I still would think that Garoppolo would throw consistently to Samuel, almost like Kittle is out there not as a number one target, but so much as a beautiful decoy that you can use more so than not. Like I don't see Samuel's productivity dropping. So I'm just curious, how do you approach that just overall with Samuel as opposed to it just in relation to Swift, which you're right. From a volume standpoint, I feel like Swift, you kind of have to roll with him every week, knowing that they're going to be down and he's going to get the rock. But I'm just curious more so from just approaching Samuel with Kittle playing through that injury in the background.
Yeah, I get what you're saying here. So I think Kittle is going to get some volume. I don't think he's going to completely fall off the edge of the earth, right? Because even if he's still banged up, he's still a tight end that could easily score a touchdown in this game. But I do agree with you. It definitely means that more volume is going to be going the way of Deebo, of Ayuk. I think Deebo is a very reliable wide receiver. He's been that thus far this season. And even when we saw Ayuk get more involved last week, right? He kind of finally escapes the doghouse. And Deebo still plays good. Deebo still looks good in that game. So I think Deebo is going to be a very safe option every week. But in terms of it being Swift versus Deebo Samuel, I just have to go Swift.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's what I mean. I just wanted to look at it more so from, like, for example, did Deebo drop or rise at all in your rankings this week with the George Kittle news? Is there a last second, like, oh, shit, Kittle is active, let me scrub Deebo and bump him up or drop him 6 rankings? Probably not, right?
Yeah, no, not a lot. I mean, like, sure, maybe a spot or 2, but it wouldn't necessarily make me be like, oh, shit, now I can't play. Or I have to play Deebo, right? That's just not how that works. Unless, of course, like Ayuk was out or something. Like if Ayuk was out, then I'd be like, oh, well, now Deebo might be top 5, right? But with with Kittle being a little bit banged up, then that's not really something that's going to move the needle completely.
Rashad on the super chat, we appreciate you, sir. Tim Patrick, Marquez Callaway, or Crowder to run with here?
Ooh.
We'll assume full PPR.
Dang. I'm going to go ahead and go with Patrick. I think Patrick is the wide receiver 2 there in Baltimore. I don't trust Jamison. The thing is, I think Crowder's a good player, but how can you trust anyone on the Jets with Zach Wilson playing this bad, with the team playing so bad? Callaway, I think you can't. I'm not really trusting him either. I think Tim Patrick's fine. I think the reason why we saw all the Denver players besides the running backs underperform last week against the Jets is because, hey, they're playing the Jets, right? They steamroll over the Jets. You're up by 1 million. You don't have to throw. Teddy can just kind of hand the ball off and the game's over. The Jets can't stop anything. So that's kind of my thoughts, is that, hey, Tim Patrick will be more involved this week. He seems to be Teddy's favorite target in the offense besides Cortland Sutton. So I think Tim Patrick's pretty safe this week. And if this does become a back and forth affair between them and the Ravens, then that's going to even further up the upside that he has in this game.
What if I were just to throw this, and maybe it moves you, maybe it doesn't, right? But Denver's without a bunch of starters today, it looks like, including both of their starting guards. So Risner and Glasgow are out with ankle, knee, respectively. May not change your opinion at all. May reinforce your opinion. Oh, shit, both the interior guys are down, then they're going to be down, throwing the football a little more than we've seen, especially against that game last week. Awful football game by the Jets. In which Denver won. So I don't know. Does that change your opinion at all, that the quarterback throwing to the guy you picked is dealing with multiple guys up front down?
Yeah, that does kind of affect it in some way, but it does make you think that maybe the rushing attack won't be as strong, and therefore Teddy's going to have to try to throw the ball more, which would mean that Patrick would get more volume. But again, it's kind of the situation here. It's not really that, oh, Tim Patrick is amazing, right? He's like Jerry Rice or something. It's more of the fact that Jamison Crowder, his team is just terrible. He's coming back off of an injury. And then Callaway, it's like, how much can you trust Jameis Winston? I mean, they're going up against the Giants. The Giants are terrible on all accounts, but at the same time, Callaway was virtually invisible the first 2 games and then kind of showed up last week, but got lucky because it was a touchdown. I don't know. I just really trust Patrick a lot more than the other guys. That's kind of how I feel about it.
It's refreshing to see, because Chris, our producer, is always making fun of you for being so young and so fresh into this world here. And there you go, dropping a Jerry Rice, straight out of like a Russoism right there. So for Chris constantly ripping you on how young you are, it's not like you went Randy Moss or even Calvin Johnson. You went full GOAT on that. Just throwing props at you every now and again, man. You deserve them. That's all.
Yeah, exactly.
Chris ain't going to give them to you.
I watch the NFL films. I know all these old guys,
Right. Football life has done everything now, too. All right, Jay, back on the super chat. Pittsburgh, Miami, or Carolina? Very rare that we get a defense question, especially on a super chat. So we have to acknowledge an answer here. Let's look at this, and then we'll get to Higbee or Knox. But Pittsburgh, Miami, or Carolina on defense? I can't imagine you would roll Pittsburgh here in any capacity going up against Aaron Rodgers, but take it away, my friend.
Yeah, the funniest thing about Pittsburgh is, I think in terms of betting, I think the world is going to be on Rodgers and the Packers, whereas I think they're at 6.5 right now, plus 6.5. I actually kind of like Pittsburgh a decent amount. For some reason, it seems like Mike Tomlin as an underdog always seems to cover those kind of games. And I think everyone just saw how shitty Big Ben looked, that somehow they're going to win that game just outright. But no, I'm not starting the Steelers defense. I'm going with the Dolphins up against the Colts. Now, again, I'm a Dolphins fan, but there's no real bias here. Yes. The Colts offense sucks. Let's be honest. Carson Wentz is hobbled. He's on 2 legs. How is Michael Pittman going to play very well up against Xavier Howard or Byron Jones? Like, what do you expect? The only way, in my opinion, the Colts score is by running the ball, because the Dolphins rushing defense is so bad. Like, I'm pretty sure I could take a couple snaps back there and take it to the house, because it's just embarrassing. They literally can't stop anyone. So I expect Jonathan Taylor to have a decent game, but I'm going with the Dolphins defense. I apologize to anyone who I told to start the Bengals. That was like the biggest swing and a miss ever. Who could have seen that coming? And then Urban Meyer celebrated last night with someone who was not his wife. Shout out to Urban Meyer. But yeah, I'm going with the Dolphins defense for sure.
Did you see, though, he wasn't even rocking Jags gear?
Yeah, he's rocking the OSU gear.
Yeah. He was really trying to, like, that's like, the manager who gets thrown out and then comes back to the dugout wearing like the old glasses and fake mustache. It's like, dude, come on, are you serious? What did you think? We wouldn't recognize you? Come on.
Yeah, that was hilarious. And then he took pictures with the girls after. It's like, what are you doing, pal?
Exactly right. Well, you can see now how questionable his decision-making is both on and off the field. It's probably related by all means. Just looking at here, there really isn't anything more. I mean, we talked about how Andy Dalton inactive, last week, looking at Justin Fields and looking at, you mentioned Carson Wentz just hobbled and banged around. do you have any interest at all? And I'll just throw it any name that's possible. Maybe it's Pascal, who scored 3 touchdowns somehow, has scored 3 touchdowns this year on an offense that's just god awful with Carson Wentz. But then again, he's putting points up. Is there any interest in somebody like that on the Colts? Jonathan Taylor as well. I'm just curious how you look at kind of both of those guys within your rankings this week, Pascal and Taylor, who are dealing with just ridiculous. Look, Nelson's on the IR, so the offensive line is banged up. It's just a dog shit situation for Indy, but I wonder if there's any value that you can mine maybe with either of those guys.
Yeah, there's definitely some value in it because at the end of the day, right, the way you beat the Dolphins is by just running the ball aggressively. So I would think that Jonathan Taylor would have a big game despite the offense being bad, despite the offensive line being hurt. Jonathan Taylor last week was a huge disappointment. He was on the goal line, somehow wasn't able to get in multiple times. So I don't know. I think Jonathan Taylor's fine. Zach Pascal, though, I do worry a bit about the fact that the defense on Miami just against the pass is so tough because I feel like Pascal is the 2. So he's going to be getting either Xavier Howard or Byron Jones. It's just so hard to get past those guys, but I would definitely feel a little bit more comfortable with Pascal over Pittman. Pittman got fed targets last week, but the biggest issue is that this week it's not some hard, like some easy defense. It's going to be a tough defensive matchup for him. So I worry a lot about all these Colts players, but I am fine with Taylor. And I'm a little bit okay with starting Pascal, but I feel like you have to be in a really bad situation to really want to go full force into Pascal this week.
That's very fair. Tyler Lockett or Robert Woods in the flex. Going back up to the chat, we'll work our way down. And clearly, the super chat we appreciate, definitely not necessary, but always a way to get the attention right away. Just looking through a bunch of these here, and then another injury question that we'll hit Nick up with. All we ask here, just hit that thumbs up button. Make sure you're subscribed, of course, to the Awesemo Fantasy Football channel, and take advantage. If you haven't already, look, we're going to give you 2 free months of Awesemo Plus Platinum. You can do some serious damage on the site with a ton of projections, DFS, season long, not just in the NFL, across the board, everything that you can imagine playing in a DFS standpoint. We got you covered here. So take advantage of that with your first deposit, first paid entry. Let's look at that question, though, because I know you were getting a lot on Tyler Lockett on your stream earlier and just kind of what to do with him. So let's use him in comparison. And I think this is actually a really good question here on the stream because there is the unknown for kind of both, right? The injury or at least the health with Lockett maybe. And when is that game coming from Robert Woods?
Yeah, the thing is, I feel like you just have to throw. You can't play Woods, in my opinion, unless you're in a really bad situation, because I think eventually it will come his way, right? There's no way that Kupp continues to have this humongous target share in the offense that eventually it's bound to change. But Lockett is coming banged up with the hip. The expectation is that he plays. My expectation is that he plays well. I mean, he is a risky player, right? Because last season we saw it. He has a great game, then he falls asleep for 4 games, then he plays great again. And it's like a very on and off kind of scenario there. But at the end of the day, this season, through the first 2 games before he got hurt, he was very reliable every single game. So I'm going to continue to fire up Lockett with much more confidence than I have in Woods. I think eventually things will turn. The page will turn on Woods. But right now, to me, there's just no way I'm playing him.
Yeah. Wow. I didn't think it would be that emphatic of a no on Woods. Or is it just in relation to this question? Like,
no,
are you really that down on Woods?
I mean, I have him on so many teams, but yeah, I am very down on him right now. Like,
so
there's
you
just
speak from experience. I love it.
Yeah, I speak from the fact that he's been screwing me every single week. I mean, there's just nothing you can do with the guy. Like, he's never going to disappoint you though, because he's probably going to get like 10 PPR points, but he's also just doesn't have because for some reason Deshaun Jackson is catching the ball, Van Jefferson's catching the ball. It makes no sense. It's like Tavon Austin the other night was catching passes. It's like, who knew that guy was in the NFL?
Good point. Yeah, when you start to ask that question about somebody else in relation to what you're doing, then it's definitely a good point here. All right, let's get to this one super chat from Shane, and then we have to tell you about this really cool contest that we're doing on Yahoo where you can still get in. It's a user appreciation contest for you. But let's start with Shane on the super chat. Thank you. We appreciate you. Trade question, PPR, McLaurin, Adams, and Thomas for wide receivers, Chubb, Swift, Saquon for running backs. So would you trade Chubb or anybody for DK?
Alrighty, that's a good question. So you have McLaurin, Adams, and Thomas. You want to get rid of Chubb. I don't know why you would, with your lineup, Shane. I don't think you need to get rid of uh Chubb, to be honest with you. I don't think like Michael Thomas is going to come back, right? It's almost time to where he is actually going to be coming back, right? We're in week 4. I've seen stuff about maybe like week 7 he's back. So that's just a couple weeks from now. I think that you're fine rolling those 3 running backs out as your 2 running backs and your flex, and then you go with the 2 wide receivers. I don't think you need to get rid of Chubb for DK. If you're getting rid of Chubb, I'm looking for a much better running or receiver than DK that I feel like I can rely on, because I think when Lockett's in the game, it's kind of hard to rely on Metcalf to really have that big game every single week. So in my opinion, no, I would not really look to do that trade.
Yeah, the only person, I mean, the running backs are stacked, but at the same time, you lose touchdowns. You lose a lot of points there with Chubb. Barkley, I mean, who the hell knows, right? Like what you can get consistently. And we talked about Swift having value. So I feel like that core of running backs is significantly better to look at with Chubb in it than without it, right? It's almost like if you trade Chubb, even if you stack up with DK, you're probably going to be looking to trade one of those wide receivers for another running back, right?
Yeah, probably. I mean, you're in a situation there where you're kind of screwing yourself because you have literally 3 running backs that at the end of the season could be top 8. Maybe, I mean, Barkley, it's going to be hard for him, right, to finish inside the top 5 from slowing down the first 2 games, but maybe it is possible because other guys get hurt. That always happens. So at the end of the day, I would just stick with the 3 running backs. And I think that a guy like Chubb, maybe because he had a down game last week, maybe that's why, but he's worth more to me than a guy like Metcalf.
So we have another awesome Yahoo contest here for you. It's the NFL 15K. Everyone wins. It's our user appreciation special here, right? So it's only $10 as you see to enter. You can pick players from the slate today. Top 1,500 will share a 15K prize pool. $500 is going to first place. Now, it's also guaranteed to run even if it doesn't fill. So think about that. You can jump in. Still an opportunity now to get in. We also have that week $4 million baller contest. Take advantage if you're a new Yahoo user. We continue to tell you this. Look, take that $10 site credit. You can apply it right away to the $10 entry, the guaranteed payout. This is all connected. You know, we try to make it easy for not idiots like Nick, idiots like me. I'm way stupider, dumber, as you could tell, right? So it's if I can figure this shit out, then trust me, everybody can figure it out. It's beautiful. It's all connected. Take advantage of it, and then we'll still throw in the 2 free months of Awesemo Plus Platinum. Just hit that thumbs up button and subscribe. We're not even charging you. We're just asking you in return to hit that thumbs up button and subscribe to the channel. All right, Angelo with a super chat. Appreciate all the money coming in. We appreciate you big time here. Definitely not necessary, but very appreciated. Full PPR, need to start one. Cole Beasley or Waddle?
Cole Beasley or Waddle? I'm going with Waddle. I like Waddle a lot this week. The thing with Waddle is if you're in like a standard league, then you just can't play Waddle because every single one of his receptions are like 5 feet away from Jacoby Brissett. But at the end of the day, in PPR, if he gets 10 plus targets in this game up against the Colts, he could go crazy. Like, 10 catches, 50 yards. That's a lot of points, though. So go ahead and fire him up. I think I'm pretty confident in him this week. It seems like they want to use Will Fuller, but they just don't know what to do, I guess, with Will Fuller because they just weren't throwing the ball his way. I mean, speaking of the refs really screwed the pooch on the Dolphins. I mean, he was getting assaulted in the end zone. They don't throw the PI call, but it's okay, right? Why do the Dolphins get a win? They're not the Bucks, They don't get the Brady calls.
Hey, I had him on a money line. You saw the tweet. I was as disappointed as you, my friend. Okay.
I was very disappointed. At least I had him +3, so I wasn't as mad. But yeah, I was still pretty angry.
No, good. See, there you go. That's what I get for being brave or being idiotic. I am curious though, and this is just kind of the general approach, right? Because you look at this game against Houston, and you look at how well Buffalo has been steamrolling people, especially just taking advantage of either defensive scores or short fields. I feel like this is the one team that we can now, especially because of the matchup, we should be, it's a 17.5 point spread. That's ridiculous how large this spread is, but it's going to impact starters, is it not? But at the same time, like guys, Stephon Diggs, Josh Allen, you kind of have to play because if they're up 34-0, chances are they're going to stand the best reason of being the reason why they're up 34-0. But you start to look at Cole Beasley, maybe the backfield as well. I wonder how you approach a squad like this where there are a couple of must starts, but then there are maybe the blowout factors that play into whether or not you would normally go with a guy. Cole Beasley could get you 10 grabs for 80 yards, but against Houston, maybe he's been phased out at that point and he's not worth a start as a whole.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's very weird to see what's going to be happening in this game because, like you said, the spread is just ridiculous. That's like not normal at all for an NFL game at all to be that high of a spread. Seems like more of a college spread, but I'm still fine going ahead and playing those guys. I think that there's a good chance that they all have a big game. I mean, Josh Allen, he might drop 35 points and it might just be in the first half and then they throw in Matt Barkley or something. Like the Houston Texans defense is just that bad. I like Zach Moss a lot because of the fact that they're going to be up and trying to run a lot at the end of the game. So my lean would be to just be confident with them. And then on the other side of the ball, you got Brandon Cooks, who I'm very confident in as well. Despite the fact that that team sucks and the quarterback dismay is terrible there, it doesn't even matter, right? Because Brandon Cooks is just such a key piece in this offense that he's just going to get targets that I'm very confident in him.
You mentioned Moss, just to circle back here on Buffalo, Moss or Singletary. If you had the choice between the two, Moss seems to be a little more boom bust, but TD dependent in a good way.
Yeah, it does seem like that. I mean, the thing with him and Singletary is like every week you're basically just guessing, right? Because I wouldn't be surprised if Singletary outscores him, but I think the better player out of those two, like if you were to ask me, hey, Nick, who's the better player? I'd say that it's Zach Moss. I don't think Singletary is very good at all, but I think that Moss would be my lean this week. He'll probably be my lean every single week because I think he's the better player. And I think that there's a higher chance that he ends up finding his way into the end zone because he's more of a bigger back when compared to Singletary.
Screwed videos. It's got to be a notorious FNTSY streamer right there. Who to start for PPR, Jamal Williams or Gaskin?
Ooh, Jamal Williams
I
or
have Gaskin on the bench for Antonio Gibson, but I'm curious to hear what you have to say about Gaskin this week, especially with your Homer glasses on.
Oh yeah, I'm going with Gaskin over Jamal Williams. I mean, Jamal Williams, that's a touchdown hope. Gaskin is the safer bet in my eyes. I mean, last week he got vultured by Malcolm Brown, right? They took him out. They throw Brown in. Brown scores the touchdown. But it makes sense, though, because Brown is the bigger body there. They're trying to get into the end zone. It makes sense. But I think Gaskin is a lot safer. Again, I really think this Colts defense going into the season, probably everyone had the Colts defense looking like one of the better ones in the NFL. And it's a lot like Washington, where they have just completely imploded. They don't look very good at all. Maybe that's because the offense is so bad, but I just think Gaskin is the much safer bet.
So let me further this here because I see Joe Villa on the chat. 12-team PPR, Zach Moss, Corey Davis, or Gaskin. So we continue this Gaskin, but now we put Corey Davis and Zach Moss in the conversation.
Yeah, that's a good one. So Corey Davis is kind of just, to me, an unplayable player. I genuinely believe that you can't play a guy that's on the Jets right now. I don't know how you can reasonably talk yourself into doing it. So my lean would be to go
volume.
Even with the volume, because like, even with the volume was the argument the last 2 weeks, and we saw how he played, right? So I don't know, like even with
all right, I stand corrected. You're right.
There's a lot of situations where even with the volume isn't actually like that makes sense, but in this situation, even with the volume, like the issue is that he's just not very. I don't know. He's good,
he's
but
not
the
Brandon
team,
Cooks.
The team just stinks. That's the issue. Is the team is just so bad. Like I don't know what Zach Wilson is doing. I feel bad for Jets fans, right? They kick Darnold out of town. Darnold's 3-0. You're 0-3. What are you supposed to do there? It's a bad situation. Overall, though, I would play Zach Moss 100% over that grouping. Again, I think Moss could score 2 touchdowns in this game. I think he could score 3 touchdowns in this game. So he would be a very heavy lean of mine in this game.
So I'm curious, as we'll get back to a bunch of chat questions here, start sits. Make sure you're following, of course, on Twitter at NotoriousFNTSY. At Shader Show for me, the 2 free months of Awesemo Plus Platinum. We'll tell you more about this contest here in a couple of minutes, but your first deposit, paid contest entry, you're going to get $10 right away to use. What are you doing? Antonio Gibson is playing through injury once again. I imagine that it would take a better option, probably not even a lateral move to sit him this week.
Yeah, it would. I don't see any way that you can really sit him this week. The biggest confusion with this is like, what is Antonio Gibson's role? like in this, not, or what is JD McKissic's role in this offense, right? Because we saw in week 1, he's useless. Week 2, he vultures Antonio Gibson. And then week number 3, he's useless. Is this going to be every other week he's used? Is this that he isn't used at all? Or what is this? Because again, I think Antonio Gibson's really good, but I just don't understand why they're taking him off in third down scenarios. Like, why is he not just in the game? The guy played running back and receiver in college. Why the fuck are you taking him off the field? I really don't know what Mr. Riverboat Ron is doing. And that's a weird nickname for Ron, because he's not really like that. But I don't know. I'd playing Antonio Gibson. I'm confident in it. But something just always worries me about JD McKissic just potentially really putting a damper on his day.
I'm curious. Speaking of injury, we'll bounce around here back at the chat too. Elijah Mitchell is out. And we've talked about this craziness in the backfield here. Trey Sermon now, next man up. Is there any concern at all going to somebody in that backfield, knowing how inconsistent and kind of wild it has been to predict? Or is Mitchell out, maybe making it a clearer path to Sermon?
Yeah, Mitchell being out definitely makes it a clear path, but every week it's a gamble with those guys. Every week with the 49ers, there's like Juszczyk scored last week. Who could have seen that coming by like a mile away? No one really, right? So that's the toughest part, is that I'll tell you guys to start Sermon, and in a lot of situations, he'll be the fine answer. Last week, we all got very lucky that he scored. We were very, very lucky that he found his way into the end zone, because otherwise he stunk. But
yeah,
I don't know. I'm fine playing him. But again, it's a very risky situation. It's a lot like with the Baltimore Ravens, right? Where Tyson Williams isn't the clear guy there, in my opinion. But there's a chance that Tyson Williams scores a touchdown, scores 2 touchdowns, and is just ran heavily there because the Baltimore Ravens like to run the ball. So it's 2 very comparable situations. But I do feel a little bit safer with Sermon compared to like trying to start Latavius or Tyson Williams in my lineup.
And I guess the last thing to look at with just injury, and we'll bounce back here as well, but in the at least running back position, is what to do in Denver, knowing that Melvin Gordon is banged up. He will play, but we also brought up that their 2 starting guards are out. So I don't know if maybe there was some sneaky value playing through injury for Melvin Gordon that's gone, or if you were looking at somebody else, Freeman, somebody else on that chart, and now that's gone because of what's happened with the offensive line.
Yeah, I think with Melvin Gordon, you almost kind of have to, he's just been really good, that he's kind of in a situation where I want to be playing him, but with the offensive line concerns, that does worry me a lot. Now, again, does that mean that he's unstartable? Probably not, because he also does have some value in the receiving game. Obviously, Williams is the better receiver when you're comparing the two, but I still think that he does have a decent amount of value in this offense. And if the game is high scoring, though, that is kind of the worst case scenario for him, because then they won't be able to run as much.
All right, let me throw this out at you here, because I don't know how much value you have on a season debut with a quarterback that was not supposed to be throwing him the football when he should have debuted in week 1, and that's Curtis Samuel, versus Juju, who will play today. And we also know that Deontay Johnson is playing, so that's going to take away some looks, of course, for Smith-Schuster. Where is Curtis Sam? Like, if you were to use parameters or boundaries here, and on the left, it was Deontay Johnson, on the right, it was Juju Smith-Schuster. Where's Curtis Samuel fit in that?
I would say Curtis Samuel is a guy that in a lot of situations where we haven't seen the guy, right? He's going from the Panthers to the Washington football team. So we've yet to see him play on this team. We've obviously yet to see him play with not Fitz, with Taylor Heineke. So now it's an even more confusing situation that we're in right now, to the point where I'd rather just be a little bit more cautious and just not play him this week, right? Next week, hey, maybe he has a great game. Then next week, you're very confident in it. In DFS, sure, I'm fine playing Curtis Samuel, but in a redraft league, to me, it's a little too risky. Whereas without Claypool, I think that Juju has a pretty solid role in this offense. So I would go ahead and lean with Juju, and very confidently at that.
Wow. Okay. So basically, going back to this, you have Samuel just like off screen behind my mic.
Yeah, basically, he's like behind the fucking green screen behind you. He's in another room.
Yeah, somewhere back here. I'm just I'm just thrilled that this thing can go. What kind of Miami green doesn't show up with that? Yeah, it's like a dark screen behind you.
It is, but it doesn't work with the it's the Dolphins green is like turquoise. Like here, let me grab a shirt.
Yeah, let
real
me
quick.
see what's going on here because I'm amazed that my Eagles green can work and for some reason yours can't.
Yeah, I guarantee you
This
this
is
doesn't
less
work.
green than turquoise is just like blue and green mixed,
Oh,
right?
wait,
No, that
hold up.
works.
It does work on
Yeah.
here. Look at this.
Yeah.
Flip the shirt around. Go Fins, baby.
Look at that.
It does
Go
work. Look at that.
Fins.
Hell yeah.
It
It does work. So maybe I can wear the hat.
tailgate.
No, I bought it
Right.
online, but yeah, it's a fire shirt.
I love it, man. That's OG right there.
Now that I know that works, I'm wearing some more Dolphins gear next time. On stream,
come
if we were on StreamYard, it doesn't work. I'd be like invisible here, wearing an invisible shirt. But I guess it works on
really.
Zoom.
So Zoom is the difference maker here. Okay.
Yeah, I guess so. So next week I'll be wearing a Dolphin shirt.
That's why you're always rocking the white tee because you're afraid of what would show up on StreamYard.
Yeah, that's why I always wear like a
Yep.
white shirt or a gray shirt or like maroon or something.
Right.
Like anything that's not anywhere close to green, I don't wear.
I can buy you some time. We can remind people about all the cool things we're doing here with Yahoo. If you want to take, 30 seconds and put a bunch of Miami Dolphins shit on, or if you want to wait until next week, that's fine as well. It's totally your call, man.
We'll go next week. Maybe at the end of the season,
Okay.
I'll go shirtless like Mac Jones in that picture of him smoking the cigar.
Well, are you going to have stuff painted on you like Go Fins? I mean, that's really what it would be worth, right? Just
Oh
to
yeah,
see
I should write Go Fins on my chest. That'd be pretty funny.
Exactly. All right, let's hit the Silver Rapture on the chat. Start 2. Beasley, Sermon, Patrick, or Myers. Jacoby Myers now entering the conversation. So start 2 here between those 4.
Beasley, Sermon. Who was the other guy?
Myers, Beasley, Sermon, and Tim Patrick.
Oof. Okay. I'm going with I'm definitely going with Tim Patrick. And I would go with Jacoby Myers. He was part of the question, right?
Yep.
Okay, yeah. Jacoby Myers, look, this Patriots offense sucks. They're going to get absolutely destroyed by the Bucs, in my opinion. But I do think that Jacoby Myers is going to be very involved. And I should say absolutely sucks, right? Because Mac Jones looks like, to me at least, the best rookie quarterback out there right now. So he actually looks pretty solid. Unless you can't count Trey Lance, right? Because Trey Lance is actually really good as well. But Mac Jones is going to just feed the ball to Jacoby Myers. Nelson Aguilar is there, but Jacoby Myers was just getting so many targets last week that I feel like he's almost an insta lock into my lineup at this point as like a top 32 guy. And then, yeah, that would be my answer there. And Tim Patrick. I do like Cole Beasley a decent amount, but you never really know there because, right, Dawson Knox has been scoring touchdowns. Emmanuel Sanders is there. Like, they still do have other options to throw the ball to, whereas last year it seemed like it was really just Cole Beasley as the clear number 2 weapon there in Buffalo, whereas this year, to me, it's more up in the air. They also have Gabe Davis, who's pretty solid. So Cole Beasley, he's a solid option, but he would not be a part of my answer.
This is a tough one from Brian on the chat. PPR format. Who are you playing? Mike Davis, Javonte Williams, or Sony Michel?
Ooh. I don't think you can play Michelle this week, to be honest with you, with the issue of the fact that Darrell Henderson's going to play, right? So if Darrell Henderson plays, then Henderson basically has absolutely zero value to me. So he's not in the equation, even in the slightest bit. The other players, oh, that's tough. That's a very tough question,
Yeah, right?
to be honest with you.
I mean,
you can go.
I'm sorry. No, I was going to ask. I feel like to start here, it's how much do you trust Mike Davis? Really? Like,
yeah, the thing with Mike Davis is like, I do trust him, but I don't trust him. He's never going to have that big week, right? Because for some reason, Cordero Patterson is getting so much usage that where you can't really, like at the beginning of the season, in the offseason, I liked Mike Williams a lot because I was like, you know what? He's the clear number 1 running back there. Cordero Patterson's behind him. What is Cordero Patterson going to do? I guess I was wrong, right? Obviously, he's a key focal point in this offense. And to me, Mike Davis is safe, right? I'm fine playing him this week, but the upside every week is really hinging on the fact that he scores and Patterson doesn't. So
yes. So with Williams, is there just more of a boom scenario here that you take the risk, but at least from a pass catching / scoring standpoint, there's a greater payout, but it's a bigger risk?
It's a huge risk to me. It's a very big risk. So I would probably lean with Mike Davis. But again, I don't feel super attached to Mike Davis, right? I don't feel like Mike Davis is going to blow up this game and have a huge week. So
yeah, I get it. Every now and again, you get a reluctant play. Like, look, if I have to, unfortunately, then you're stuck in this spot and you have to move with Mike Davis.
Yeah.
What about, and we haven't talked really at all about the backfield here with Hubbard and knowing that McCaffrey is still out. So question on the chat about starting at the flex. And this is going back to a guy that you've brought up a couple of times from experience, I may add, that you've been down on in Robert Woods. So Hubbard or Woods in the flex?
I'm going with Hubbard by a country mile, to be honest with you. I think Royce Freeman, something not many people talk about is Royce Freeman. I think Freeman will be more involved than most would like. Right, last year we just talked about Mike Davis. Christian McCaffrey goes down, Mike Davis is the guy. There is not even a semblance of another running back behind him really getting any work. But then this year, I think Royce Freeman will have at least, now it's not going to be like it's going to be 50-50, right? I don't think that, but I do think he's going to have more of a role than people think, but I would still go with Hubbard. It's not that I don't like Woods. I love Robert Woods. I think he's a very talented receiver, but the situation there is not very good right now. And Hubbard has the chance to potentially go into Dallas and put up a very solid game. I mean, the Dallas defense looks good up against the Eagles run, but the Eagles only ran like 4 times. So how do you really measure that into the factor of the Dallas defense against the rushing attack? So I would lean with Hubbard. I'm very confident in him. And I think this Carolina offense is set up around the running back. So it's very clear that they want to use a guy like Hubbard, and I think he'll play well.
Where do you have Baker Mayfield this week? Is he more of a decision around a guy like maybe Carson Wentz, Jimmy Garoppolo? I'm curious just to look at a couple of quarterbacks, because it's rare that we get quarterbacks asked on the start sit. So a ton of running backs and wide receivers, as I understand, and it makes sense there. But I am just curious kind of where you had somebody like Baker Mayfield heading a road game against Minnesota. We know Cook's playing. Vikings come off a huge win where they were home dog last week without Cook against Seattle. I don't know how you even have Baker, or where you, I should say, have Baker ranked this week overall in the quarterback spot.
Yeah, Baker is pretty low down there, in my opinion. Like, I'd rather start Taylor Heineke over him. Like,
what about Daniel Jones?
Daniel Jones,
him, right?
I'm starting Baker over Daniel Jones 100%.
Oh, okay. I thought maybe I could push you a little bit on the how low could you go with Baker Mayfield?
Yeah, no, the thing with Daniel Jones is like the rushing upside is always there, but there's also the fact that he's going to fumble the ball or throw like 3 picks. I mean, Slayton's not there, Shepard's not there. My hope is this week is the one week where we can actually ride Kenny Golladay to success, and hopefully he actually has a big game. But again, I mean, can you ever really rely on that? Probably not, right?
No. Shahir on the super chat. Thank you. We appreciate. Trey Sermon or Zach Moss, full PPR.
Trey Sermon or Zach Moss. I'm going with Zach Moss. Now, I think actually Sermon probably has, if you were to see like who has the potential to score the bigger game, probably Sermon, right, as the lead back in San Francisco. But the thing is, he's so risky. And to me, Zach Moss is so safe, but they have similar upside. So I would go with Zach Moss up against the Texans. I think he has the potential to score. And I think he has the potential to score probably multiple touchdowns if they're up big. I mean, like you said, I think the spread right now, they're -17 last time I checked. Maybe it's even higher. I don't know, but
17 and a half, but let me double check. Yeah. I mean,
yeah, it was 17 when I checked yesterday.
19. I see it right here.
19. Yeah. How are you?
Oh my God. It just bumped. I mean, think about this. Like, how do you not put Houston in a 6 or 7 point teaser at this point? But then again, like, is that safe? Buffalo, I had Washington teased up to 21, and they couldn't do anything against Buffalo. I mean, would it shock you if the Bills won another game 34-3 or 34-0 against this dog shit Houston team?
No, wouldn't surprise me at all. I mean, the thing is, though, it's so hard for me to want to take a bet when you're losing 17 points, 17 and a half points. Like, but it's I can easily see 19. Jeez, oh my God, 19. I wouldn't be surprised. 19 is just so high. That's like Alabama playing up against a team. Like, that's how high it is. It's like ridiculous.
Arkansas. That was the opening line. I know because I had it. It still wasn't enough. That was an opening line a week ago for Arkansas against Georgia. 19 points. I mean, think about this. It was 17. Look, the game's going to kick off in 14 minutes. So I don't think it's going to drop significantly. But again, that's just the point in all of this, which is, yeah, Buffalo may be cruising in the second half, but somebody is going to be doing the damage. Like, it's not going to be defensive scores and kick returns in your way to 34-0.
Definitely. It's going to be a steamrolling, I would assume. But then, the Bills, it's just they're just such a good team. They played so bad, in my opinion, like the first 2 games, and you just had to know things were going to turn around. So I expect them to have a very big game this week, and it is going to be shocking, probably, how many points they drop on the Texans. Like, they could literally score 60, because it doesn't seem like McDermott's the kind of guy to, like, let off the gas, right?
Well, Brandon Cooks, I imagine, has significant value, and if that's the case, maybe the only guy that has some value today on that team.
Yeah, now I was doing a bunch of DFS lineups like earlier, and I was getting a lot of Pharaoh Brown, but I don't know. I don't know if I could trust the tight end there. It seems like Brandon Cooks is the only start in that game for the Texans. He's the only guy you can rely on. Outside of him,
Right.
I mean, like, maybe if Danny Amendola was to suit up, maybe you could trust him to just catch like 10 passes or something. But yeah, I don't really trust that at all. So my lean would probably be on Brandon Cooks, and it's very heavy on Brandon Cooks. Like,
Yeah.
I think that was one of the players I was most right on this whole offseason, was really banging the drum for Brandon Cooks. And of course, I don't have him on a single league, right? Because all my friends listen to the videos. They all take all the players I like. So, it is what it is.
Yeah, that's true. But you know what? You're right with Cooks, at least now, and you could bang that drum that you hit it ahead of time, and there's nobody else at all worth even a look on that squad. Sandy, we appreciate the super chat. By all means, we'll squeeze as many as we can in here before lock. Jesse asking, full PPR flex spot, Corey Davis, who you've already redlined and said that there's no Corey Davis action for anybody. So let's remove Corey, because I can't imagine either of these guys are going to be below how you look at Davis. So let's remove this, and it becomes an interesting back and forth here between Hunter Renfro Monday night or Devonta Smith today against the Chiefs.
Ooh. Hunter Renfro has been sneaky, like the best receiver on the Raiders, if I'm being honest. I saw him, I don't remember who it was up against the Dolphins. He literally shattered this guy's ankles, like Allen Iverson type of deal there. It was crazy. It was a great move by him. But I'm going with Devonta Smith of the Eagles. I think Devonta Smith will eventually, he had a big game week 1, and I think he's been relatively quiet the last couple of games, but I think that he will turn it around here. I mean, you have to think that the Eagles are going to be at least somewhat of a fight in this game, right? They're not just going to be completely done in this one. So my lead would be Devonta Smith. I do like Renfro, though, but Renfro to me doesn't have anywhere near the same amount of upside as a guy like Devonta Smith does.
I think you're right. I think, unfortunately, for Renfro, it's so boom bust, and you really just have to rely on a score. Whereas Devonta Smith, I think, no matter what the situation is going to be targeted heavily today. If they abandon the run, he's going to be targeted heavily. If they're up on the Chiefs, he'll be targeted heavily. He's not going away in the game plan by any means. And there are other people, like Waller could easily take targets and productivity away from Renfro. I think it would almost be like circumstantial if Devonta Smith didn't have a good game, not because the Eagles forgot about him. That makes sense.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, so just continue
to
keep playing. No, I was just going to say that Devonta Smith, he's just a guy that is so talented that I feel like in any single matchup, he could really put up like a huge game. Like, he could easily score 20 plus points, whereas Renfro, to me, isn't the kind of guy that's going to do that.
All right, let's look at this. The Condom or Hubbard? Who do you like better?
We're going with, I'm going with Hubbard. I have him ranked higher. Obviously not as safe, of course. Hunt should be sponsored by Trojan, but I think that Hubbard is much safer, or not much safer, but much more risky. But he does have he has more upside, in my opinion, because Hunt typically in most games isn't going to go over that 20 plus point total that wins you your week. Whereas in my opinion, I think that Hubbard does have that potential every single game. But I know people are talking about how Kareem Hunt played really good last week, but I do think that this week is the Hubbard game where he plays really big. So I'm going with Hubbard.
No, I think it's an interesting one to look at because you're rightfully so, being high on Kareem Hunt, trying to find out when there ever is a breakout game for Hubbard and trying to predict that is pretty difficult. So you're going safe versus risk. A couple of running back questions here on the chat real quick, Nick. Sorry. Chase Edmonds or Damian Harris?
Definitely Edmonds. I don't think you can trust Harris against the Bucs run D. And I think that with James White down now and out for the season, that does open the door a lot for him to get more receptions. But in this game, to me, you'd have to have literally no one to want to start Damian Harris. And Chase Edmonds, to me, sure, he didn't end up looking that great last week because Connor scored twice. But to me, I think that he is definitely the much safer option and has far higher upside this week.
Well, what about the next one I see here, just to further Harris and kind of gauge how down you are on him? Harris or Patterson? As we talked about Patterson on Atlanta being sneaky now, taking some touches and productivity away from Davis.
Yeah, I like Patterson a lot. I mean, Patterson's a top 10 running back right now in fantasy. Like, it makes no sense, right? Obviously, like, who would have thought if you asked me at the beginning of the season, Ken Cordero Patterson finishes top 10 running back, I'd laugh directly at your face. That's impossible. But it's seeming more and more possible every single day we watch a football on Sunday. So I'm going to continue to ride the train of Patterson, and I don't think it's even crazy to do at this point.
Telling you, man, Laffy and Rasa laughing at me on this very channel weeks ago when we were looking at waiver wire guys to jump on and mentioned Patterson and, oh, no, he's not getting the looks, oh, Mike Davis stuff. And, all right. You know, I know I'm just a host here, but all right. And then you come back, and I'm glad you recognize it at the very least. And, yeah, I mean, just looking at that productivity alone, it's kind of hard to ignore. Marquez on the Super Chat. Thank you. We appreciate this, Marquez. Pittman, Meyer, Beasley, or Deontay Johnson?
Great question.
3, 2 wide receivers, 1 flex.
Great question. We're going with Deontay Johnson for sure. I mean, despite the fact that that team looks putrid, you have to play him, in my opinion. I think that Deontay Johnson is the clear number 1 target there. Volume is king, and it's not the situation in New York with Corey Davis where volume is king, but the offense just is that bad. I think Pittsburgh, like, the offense is bad, right? But it's not that bad to where you can't start Deontay Johnson. And then I would go with Jacoby Myers up against the Bucks. I love his upside to get a lot of targets in that game. And then between Pittman and Beasley, to me, I just worry about Pittman up against the Dolphins defense, whereas I don't really worry at all about Beasley's matchup up against the Texans. I understand Pittman realistically does have more upside, but at the end of the day, the risk that is there, he could put up a goose egg entirely, in my opinion, whereas I don't think I could ever see Beasley doing that. So my lean would be Beasley, Deontay Johnson, and Jacoby Myers.
Antonio Brown or Marquise Brown? Andy Triple Z's on the chat there.
All right, we're going.
Look at that. And the Super Chat pops in too, Andy. Thank you. We appreciate you.
Shout out to Andy. What a legend. So we're going to go ahead and go with, I would go with Antonio Brown. I really think that the Bucks are going to roll the Patriots, but Hollywood Brown last week really screwed us over. Like, I don't know if you were watching that game. He dropped 2 touchdowns.
Yes.
He's like, what? He's like wide open. The ball like grazes his fingers and he drops them. Now, I actually think that Hollywood Brown's going to be fine, right? There's no need to be like, oh shit, now I can't have him in my lineup. But Antonio Brown, the risk with Antonio Brown's very high though, every single week, in my opinion, because you never know what it's going to be in Tampa Bay, right? Because every week it's probably going to be, it's Godwin or Evans. It's going to be 2 out of those 3 guys between Godwin, Evans, as well as Antonio Brown that have the big game. But without Gronk, I think that actually opens the door for all 3 of them to play well.
It's a good point, man. And I think just not trying to fade based off of week to week will get you in trouble. Look, Alex Sanchez, I don't know if this is trolling or if this is just a masterful question with timing. And when I say trolling, of course, I kid. I don't mean it to be serious here, but Curtis Samuel or Corey Davis?
Curtis Samuel or Corey Davis? That's actually a question where that just like, it blows your mind right there. That's one where it's like 2 guys that I don't like at all, to where you just have to go, in my opinion, with Curtis Samuel, because Curtis Samuel is one of those sneaky guys that may just somehow get like 30 rushing yards in this game, right? And that's just how he plays. I think that he's actually a pretty solid player. Corey Davis, man, like with Jamison Crowder there, what are we going to see? Like, do you expect to see like him get completely derailed by Jamison Crowder? Maybe it boosts him up because now there's another receiver out there that can actually catch the fucking football. That's my kind of lean on it, but I don't know. I'd rather just sit down Corey Davis this week. I'd go with anyone other than Corey Davis, to be honest.
Yeah, yes, you've been mentioning that throughout. So I was going to give you one more opportunity with that question to just nail Corey Davis to the wall and say, screw this. We're not doing anything at all with him, by all means. And if it took Curtis Samuel over Corey Davis, then so be it. Hit that thumbs up button as we wind down here. A couple of more minutes, couple of more questions. Make sure you're subscribed as well to the Awesemo Fantasy Football channel. And look, take advantage. 2 free months of Awesemo Plus Platinum. That's insane. We're going to give you 2 free months of Awesemo Plus Platinum with your first-time deposit and paid contest entry. Told you get $10 in site credit with that as well. 2 names that we've mentioned, but not in comparison. G on the chat, Trey Sermon or Devonta Smith in the flex?
Trey Sermon or Devonta Smith. I would go with, that's a good one. I would go with Trey Sermon or Devonta Smith. I would go with Trey Sermon. Again, I like Devonta Smith, but I think that Trey Sermon has more upside in this game.
Okay. I was just trying to figure out if it was a matter of just volume for carries, if there was any reception or I guess receiving value for Sermon that could help balance out what you get with Smith.
Yeah, that is definitely possible. I mean, Smith is a good player and all, but I just think that Trey Sermon, you never know. He could literally score 3 times. I wouldn't be surprised. So that's kind of just my thought process on it.
Mike Davis or Fournette, PPR. This is RSM on the chat.
I'm going Mike Davis. I don't like it at all, but yeah, I'm going Mike Davis over Fournette. I mean, I just don't think you can trust Fournette weekly at all. So that's just kind of how I feel about it. It's tough, to be honest. Tough sailing for that line for playing him at this point.
Extension Gaming on the super chat. Thank you. Extension, Zach Moss, Patterson, or Hollywood Brown.
Oh, Zach Moss, Patterson, or Hollywood Brown. I would go with Hollywood. Again, I'm talking about how I don't think he's dead yet. I think he's still living. I think he's still in for a big game, and I'm pretty confident in him having a bounce back game. But if he doesn't bounce back, then we could just all hop off the bandwagon right at that point. It's all over. But right now, I think you're still pretty good starting him.
Wow. Okay.
But I do like Zach Moss, though, obviously.
Okay. Yeah, I know. You've been high on both. And look, we can't ignore the productivity on Patterson, but also with Zach Moss. And you mentioned the value that he has, not just in the backfield versus Singletary, but with a couple of backs that have been thrown out there. All right, let's look at this. Gabriel on the chat here. Standard. All right. PPR pick 1. Woods, Deontay, Hollywood, Jacoby. I'm going to guess Deontay Johnson here, but maybe this is going to put your Hollywood love to the test.
Yeah, I would go with Hollywood again. Hollywood
really
is
over Deontay Johnson.
Oh, man, that's tough though. I would go with Deontay Johnson, but it is very close. I mean, I could easily see Hollywood outscoring him, but I could also. The thing with Deontay Johnson is he's probably going to see literally 15 targets in this game, so just fire him up based upon that.
Dylan on the chat. Amari Cooper or Emmanuel Sanders?
Cooper by a mile. I mean, Emmanuel Sanders scored last week. He scored not once, but twice. Cooper had a bad game. But again, you can never really put complete blame on the Cowboys. Like, those Cowboys receivers are just so good that you have to play them every week.
All right, let's squeeze one more in here. Need 2. Myers, Beasley, or DeAndre Hopkins?
I'm going with Myers. I'm going with D-Hop, even though I'm worried about D-Hop, to be honest with you.
Yeah, not enough, though, to shade to Beasley.
Yeah, nowhere near enough.
That puts it in perspective. All right, man. We're back again next week before noon Eastern as we'll get you ready for a full hour plus worth of start sits, injury news, and everything else we can squeeze in to get you ready for week 5 in the NFL. Make sure you're following Nick on Twitter at Notorious FNTSY at Shander Show. For me, thanks to Chris for producing. Take advantage. 2 free months of Awesemo Plus Platinum. Just sign up your first entry as well, and we'll give you even $10 site credit. Have a great week, and good luck.
Bye, everybody.